Okay, everybody, I am absolutely thrilled today because I am joined by the man himself, Chris Britton, aka Mr. Sinister. We're going to be talking spoilers for X-Men 97 episode 3 in this interview, so make sure you watch the episode first. How you doing today, Chris?
Good. Yes, it's 9 a.m. I've been to the gym. I've had breakfast. I'm ready to go.
Oh, I love it. Just amazing. Such a pro. So what was amazing about this episode is when we first hear Sinister, we hear him through a baby monitor. Like, what an entrance. So was there just
Yes.
right? Was there just excitement pouring through you when you first read the script?
Um, you know, I think that episode was recorded at least a year ago, and I don't recall whether there were directions through a baby monitor. And so when you see the text on a script, you have your own sort of initial impression. You go, okay. But when you actually see the animation and how it's in what context it's in, it's unnerving, that scene, uh, to say the least. And It was quite fun to watch it for the first time in Los Angeles at the premiere, and then I watched it again last night just to sort of update myself with what was going on.
Oh yeah, that's great. And like you're mentioning the animation just looks awesome. He looks even cooler now in 97. Everything gets an update, which is awesome, but your voice stays incredible. And it's great because he already gets a great line where he's like, he says to Madeline, most prefer me as Mr. Sinister, but you can call me father. So do you think playing such an evil character, do you think there is something in him though that even cares about a Madeline, that he created this clone? Is there any feeling of that in him?
I think what he cares about is what she has to offer, which is her genetic code, or his sort of obsession with Jean Grey, Madeline Pryor, and in the first the animated series in the '90s with Scott Summers. And That all began to really make sense when you looked at that episode, um, uh, Descent, which sort of puts into context his background and who he was as a genetic scientist, a contemporary of Charles Darwin, and then when his wife became ill, his child, etc., and he was looking for a cure. That was his initial motivation. So, of course, since then, he's evolved. And the other characters' description, especially Morph's description of him in episode 3, is quite something. And so was Beast, his description of him. He is personified by other people's view of him, but I'm sure he doesn't perhaps feel that. He has a goal, and
Yeah,
he's
and
determined to accomplish it.
yeah, his master, he's always got a master plan. And no, it's really good. And I like that answer you just gave, just giving more into his mindset. But was there anything to you in particular when you first were reading the script about Mr. Sinister and X-Men 97 that maybe stuck out to you, or when you were watching it that you wouldn't be able to do in the original series with Mr. Sinister?
I don't recall because, to be perfectly honest, I don't really recall what's going to be in the further episodes.
Mm.
Uh, I have I have a good idea of the final one, but I don't know. Because I recorded in Los Angeles, Toronto, and Vancouver. I just happened to be in those cities when the recording was required, and and you only get your sides.
Mm.
Um, and perhaps I got one or two scripts. But basically, you're looking at your sides, and you're creating the context and reality within those words. And so and then plus, I'm reading other scripts, and I'm doing other, voiceovers, and acting in other, television series, etc. And so you don't, at least I don't, sort of recall the details of what leads to each episode.
No, no, that's a great, honest answer. And I'm just thinking about you actually jumping into this character again because it's wild that you're tapping into him this many years later.
Yes,
So,
yeah,
were you thinking you were never going to be able to play this guy again? Like, were you stunned when you first got that call to come back?
right. Yeah, I think we all were. And we all had to re-audition for
Mm.
the roles because 30 years have passed. So people become older, voices change, energy changes. So, and fortunately, the talent of the actors like Gal Dodd, Lenore Zan, George Buza, Chris Potter, Adrian Hoff, we all, and Alison Seeley Smith, we all were able to tap into those voices again. And I had to watch before I did the audition for 97. I had to watch the series and just put it in my mind, in my ear, and sort of get into the headspace of Mr. Sinister.
Okay, well, that's great. I love you do the homework still. And I mean, do you ever go method for Mr. Sinister? Like, are you walking around your house acting like real sinister to your family and stuff?
No, no, I don't think my wife would, sort of enjoy that.
I
Um,
love that.
but my daughter might find it fun for about 5 minutes. But no,
Okay. Well,
yeah.
I have to bring this up because it's the coolest thing ever. Speaking of your daughter, on Instagram, you shared a picture of your daughter getting a tattoo of Mr. Sinister for Father's Day. I mean, were you blown away by this? Because I'm blown away by it. Like, were you shocked? Like, how did that make you feel?
Yes, that was totally unexpected. I mean, my daughter, has a number of tattoos, but this was a first, and she's a lawyer, and I said to her, please, no tattoos on your neck or face or hands. When you go, if you go into court, you don't want to have that visible. So,
Yeah, exactly. So I can never be a lawyer with this neck tattoo, is what you're
yeah.
saying. I like that.
Well,
It's
you
good
could wear a
advice.
turtleneck. You could wear
That's
a
true.
turtleneck.
That's true.
Judges might have a certain prejudice if they see it. They might go, "What's up with that lawyer?" I,
No, totally. Especially if it's a Mr. Sinister tattoo.
but that was a wonderful surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that is so cool, and I'm excited for people to see that picture because it's an awesome tattoo in general, and that's really cool that your daughter did that. So is it surreal now for you too? Because when you first played Mr. Sinister, it was in the 90s, so there wasn't this social media thing effect going on. Like, is it crazy for you just
Yeah.
today seeing the response? Like, you can just search Mr. Sinister and actually get feedback. Is that really cool?
Well, it is, and I think it there are two things that have occurred. Social media, of course. When we were recording the series in the 90s, there just wasn't the Facebook and Instagram and all the other social media uh, comments and receptions that you could see almost immediately. Um, so it was sort of an evolving reaction amongst the fans, and then we began to realize, oh yeah, this has some weight to it. But now you're seeing reactions within half an hour, an hour of an episode being aired. I try not to, I don't read everything. You can get X-Men out, if, there's just so much online about the show. And, there are comments, on IMDb, it's got a great rating, but there are always, people who will have different opinions and all that. And you can't get too invested in everyone's opinion. But where it really has an effect is at the Comic Cons, because
Mm.
there you have fans coming up and expressing to you how much they appreciate it, and of course the heroes are always more popular. But you've got to have a villain, to counter the heroes. So I appreciate any fans that really appreciate Sinister. Um,
Yes.
so that's rewarding to, and then you have the parent coming with their son or daughter, and they're
Mm,
both watching the new series
sure.
or rewatching the old series, and so that's terrific. And you realize this series, both in the animated series in '97, is not your typical cartoon or
Right.
animation series. And I've done My Little Pony and Death Note, and this is distinct from most series,
Yeah.
uh, and I think that's part of the appeal.
Absolutely. And I love that it's going to be again in the mainstream focus now. And like, I hope you're prepared because you're bringing up these conventions, but that line's going to quadruple now. You're going to be signing so many autographs. People are going to want to meet Mr. Sinister. And I'm pumped for you. And I want to know too, because people are going to want me to ask this, but when you first came up with this iconic voice for Mr. Sinister and you're looking at the comic and pulling it, like, did you have any characters from like other TV or film that inspired it? Like, where did you like even come up with it?
Um, I think the first clue, of course, is the text, and the second is the animation. The
Mm,
drawing. You see the drawing, because I'm yeah, it was prelay, I think, as they call it. First the voice, the text is recorded, and then the animation is created to the recording. So what you have are the sketches, the actual drawings of the character. So
mm.
you put that beside the text, and you let your imagination sort of go. And I'm sure I probably received direction, probably from the director Dan Hennessy and Larry Houston, and perhaps other producers who were there at the time. So you sort of you sort of allow your imagination to sort of go in places, and you think, that sounds about right, I think. And hopefully the directors and animators agree and say, yeah, you're in the ballpark. That's what we're kind of imagining for that character.
Yeah, and it's now the voice in my head whenever I read any text from Mr. Sinister, or just see him or even see the figures, which is awesome. And I love that you share love for the character on your social media, like showing pictures of the figures that come out with him, the really nice statue Diamonds Like Toys made. And I think that's so cool. So do you take pride in knowing that you are always going to be the godfather, Mr. Sinister in this medium, and also, catapult whoever plays him in live action like that? That's going to be a big influence. Do you take pride in that?
Yes, and I would certainly imagine that whoever plays them in the live action, of course, they come up with their own uh, you know uh, creation and their own take on the character. But it is kind of fun when someone comes up to me at the Comic-Con and says, "You scared me to death," you know. And he was probably maybe 10,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
12 or something. You think, well, I suppose that's a good thing. That
yeah,
I'm scared
yeah.
of
And
that. Or your voice still is, that's, when I think of the series, your voice kind of, I had nightmares about your character. Well, I guess that's a good thing.
yeah, and I mean, it's awesome that like with the update in X-Men 97, it was even more scary. It was terrifying, everything with Mr. Sinister. So really leaning into the horror and scaring people today, and new kids and adults alike, which is
Yes,
great.
that episode 3 was quite creepy, and it was fun and creepy.
Yeah, no, and I think it's cool because it's finally catapulting Mr. Sinister into the mainstream eye now, which has been so overdue. So speaking of that with the live action, do you have an actor in your mind you would love to see take on Mr. Sinister that you can kind of imagine?
John Hamm, of course, was mentioned, and there have been a few others, but what they are going to do in terms of the costume and the makeup, uh, will probably transform that actor to a certain degree. But there are a number of wonderful actors who could play this part, and it's it it would be an actor who has that kind of menacing presence, and is charismatic. That would be I'm sure who they're thinking about, or you know you don't know, because just recently I happened to look at um, people, fans of Mr. Sinister, who have dressed up as him with total makeup and some prosthetics and everything, and it's remarkable
Yeah.
uh, what they can do. Um,
Yeah.
it's really quite something. There was a fellow at the Comic-Con in Jacksonville recently who was dressed as Beast, and my God, he created the whole costume, and he was fabulous. I mean, he looked just, in fact, I took a picture of him and sent it to George Puza. I said, here you are.
Yeah. No, and that's cool. I love you bring up the costume, and I think people are excited to see in the live action how they're gonna do Mr. Sinister, how they're gonna make him look with like the real stuff. And yeah, I mean, I can't wait. And it's so fascinating, the character. And for us, like at X-Men Troll, we want to see Henry Cavill, but that's because
Oh yeah,
we
Henry.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and it's because personally, and a lot of X-Men fans want to see what you've done with the character translated to live action, that animated version. That's what's in our head. That's what we love. So I hope
right.
they do that, and I think you've just done such a great job in this character, and I hope we see him more in X-Men '97. But
You know,
Chris, yeah, what were you say?
I don't know where he goes in at the end of this season. So I'm not being obtuse with this, but from what I recall of the last episode I recorded, which has got to be almost a year ago now. I don't know where that would lead, and I'm grateful for that, because um, you know it's I can't say I'm not telling you. It's
Yeah.
because I don't know.
Well, see,
I really can't tell you.
that's the allure of Mr. Sinister, is like you're with him and then he disappears and then he just comes right when you forget him.
Yeah, yeah.
So everyone check out episode 3 again. It's spectacular, and watch X-Men 97 on Disney Plus every Wednesday. Chris, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a true honor,
Great
and hope to
chatting
talk
with
to you in the future one day.
you.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
terrific. Okay, bye bye.
Thanks.